Welcome to our channel. I'm David Muir. Early morning over the coast seems calm, the kind of quiet that makes you think the day will unfold without surprises. At 6:28, Airbase crews and harbor personnel are moving through routine checks, unaware that the morning is about to take an unexpected turn. Today, we're taking you behind the scenes of a tense, high-stakes operation, showing how calm waters and quiet skies can quickly become the stage for extraordinary events. A chance encounter on open water. Far from shore, 3 Ukrainian remotely operated vessels cruised steadily through the dim pre-dawn haze, carrying with them small aerial drones meant for a coordinated mission. These craft were not fast, nor armored, nor particularly imposing. They were the kind of improvised, almost improvised-looking creations that have become emblematic of modern asymmetric innovation, simple, agile, and built with resourcefulness rather than raw power. But fate has a way of introducing tension at the worst possible moments. A Russian patrol boat spotted unusual heat signatures in the water and moved to investigate, cutting across the waves with increasing urgency. For a moment, everything hung in the balance. The Ukrainian vessels could not outrun the approaching boat, and they could not hide in the open water. A few more seconds of exposure, a few more rounds fired in the wrong direction, and their entire mission could have been cut short before it ever began. An unexpected escape. What followed was less a chase and more a desperate scramble for survival. The remotely guided Ukrainian craft split in different directions, forcing the patrol boat to make quick decisions. The sea around them grew turbulent as engines roared and wakes crossed chaotically. The Russian vessel, unwilling to risk running aground near shallow reefs, pulled back just enough to avoid catastrophe. That brief hesitation allowed the Ukrainian craft a narrow opportunity, just enough space to deploy their aerial drones and send them skyward. In a sudden burst of motion, a dozen drones shot upward into the pale morning sky, rising beyond the reach of the patrol boat's field of fire. What could have ended in minutes transformed into the beginning of a coordinated air mission that none of the Russian installations were prepared to confront. The electronic fog of modern warfare. The launch marked the start of a more complex challenge, navigating through a digital battle space thick with interference. Russian electronic systems in the region switched on, flooding the airwaves with overwhelming signals designed to distort incoming threats. The drones, light and reliant on external guidance, suddenly found navigation systems scrambled, GPS readings no longer matched reality, and data streams filled with misleading coordinates. For a moment, the drones drifted through uncertainty, their internal systems wrestling with disorientation, yet the operators guiding them remotely had anticipated this. The drones shifted to backup methods that relied not on satellite signals but on internal tracking and motion data, less precise but dependable enough to keep the mission alive. Slowly, they regained stability, reformed their group, and pressed onward toward their objectives. Splitting the sky. Once stable at high altitude, the drones divided into 2 separate teams, each assigned to a different target. 6 would press inland toward the airbase, while 4 angled southwest toward Sevastopol harbor. 2 additional drones remained higher still, relaying communication signals to keep the teams coordinated. The sun began creeping over the horizon, bathing the coastline in gold. It was a beautiful, still morning, the kind that makes danger feel impossibly distant. But beauty has a way of masking tension, and beneath that soft glow, the drones pushed toward fortified locations that, in theory, should have been untouchable. The harbor's blind spots. Sevastopol harbor, normally a hive of early morning routine, was just waking up when 4 drones descended through the morning mist. The naval base was protected by layers of security and staffed by countless personnel trained to spot threats. Yet the drones, flying at extremely slow and low speeds, found themselves slipping through gaps in perception. Sophisticated defensive systems, optimized for fast-moving or high-flying threats, hesitated to classify what they saw. Fog softened visibility, reflections distorted radar readings, and the drones weaved between large anchored vessels that cast broad electronic shadows. It was not that the defenses were weak, it was that they were built for a different kind of danger altogether. A sudden strike in the harbor. As the drones closed in on their target, a tugboat that supported specialized naval divers' alarms finally rose across the harbor. Personnel scrambled, shouted warnings, and manned defensive weapons. The response was fast but strained by the awkwardness of the threat. The drones approached from directions that challenged the angles of mounted equipment, and their small size made precise engagement nearly impossible. In the chaotic moments that followed, several impacts rocked the vessel, damaging equipment and incapacitating its operational capacity for the day. Sailors rushed to secure nearby gear and assist one another, but the damage had been done. Instead of a functioning support ship prepared for its mission, the harbor was now grappling with a sudden emergency that rippled through the day's planned operations. The airbase awakens. 35 kilometers inland, the 6 drones assigned to the airbase approached at low altitude, blending among the morning traffic and landscape features. Their route carried them just above the roadways, slipping between structures and natural cover. The base itself had advanced defensive systems and personnel ready to respond to air threats, but the unusual trajectory of the drones challenged expectations. Radar scans momentarily overlooked them as the sensors cycled through altitude bands. By the time the drones crossed the perimeter, they were too close for a clean detection pattern. Vehicles, hangars, and storage buildings created a labyrinth of reflections and obstructions that made tracking them incredibly difficult. A race against seconds. Once inside the perimeter, the drones darted between obstacles, following a path that took them toward the parked aircraft on the flight line. Soldiers on duty reacted quickly, activating alarms and moving to intercept, but the drones' unpredictable movements created constant difficulty. Personnel brought out portable launchers designed for much larger, hotter targets and attempted to improvise. Some fired in haste, hoping to disrupt the incoming threat, but the drones were small, nimble, and hard to track. Every second counted, and every moment of hesitation carried weight. The final approach. In the final stretch across the base, the drones split into smaller formations, weaving in rapid, erratic patterns as defenders attempted to engage them with small arms fire. The constant movement, coupled with the rising sun glaring directly into the line of sight, made targeting a challenge. Despite the defenders' efforts and their deep commitment to protecting the base, several drones succeeded in reaching the aircraft they had been programmed to disable. Impacts shook the flight line as the drones collided with the helicopters prepared for the morning's mission, causing fires that spread quickly across the tarmac. Crews rushed to contain the damage, pulling equipment and extinguishing flames, but the attack had come too swiftly for a complete defense. Aftermath on the tarmac. In the minutes following the explosions, the base erupted into a synchronized emergency response. Fire crews raced their trucks onto the flight line, surrounding the burning aircraft with foam and suppressant chemicals. Medics checked on personnel who had been near the impacts. Commanders began triaging the situation, organizing containment efforts, and assessing the broader implications for the day's operations. The calm of the early morning had been replaced by urgency, confusion, and a ripple of alarm. Yet through the smoke and damage, the personnel worked with a disciplined efficiency that showed the base's resilience and preparedness for crisis situations. What the attack meant. By 6:43, less than an hour after the earliest Ukrainian vessels appeared on the horizon, both targeted locations were dealing with the consequences of a coordinated strike. The tugboat at the harbor was disabled and listing its specialized equipment scattered or compromised. At the airbase, multiple helicopters meant for a mission that morning were no longer operational, forcing the cancellation or restructuring of plans. For Ukraine, the operation represented an improvised but successful effort to disrupt Russian activities. For Russia, it became a moment of reassessment, a reminder of how unconventional methods can shape modern conflict in unpredictable ways. A new kind of warfare. What this episode demonstrated more than anything was the shifting nature of contemporary conflict. Gone are the days when only massive fleets or heavily armored aircraft determined outcomes. Increasingly, small, inexpensive, and creatively engineered systems can influence the battlefield in profound ways, especially when paired with careful planning and the element of surprise. This was not a clash of equal machines, but a contest between resourcefulness and expectation. And resourcefulness, in this case, found the opening it needed. The human side of the story. Beyond all the numbers, systems, and technology lies a more human story, the people caught up in the chaos, the ones who reacted quickly, improvised defenses, and worked under incredible pressure. Sailors shouted warnings across decks, soldiers tried to identify fast-moving shapes in the glare of sunrise, and crews scrambled to control fires that threatened to spread further. The Ukrainian operators guiding their drones from afar also carried the weight of uncertainty. None of them knew exactly how the mission would unfold or whether the equipment would hold up under stress. Yet all acted with the hope that their efforts would make a meaningful difference. The broader message. In the end, the events of that morning served as a reminder of the complexity and unpredictability of modern conflict. Every side adapts, learns, and evolves. Every new tactic challenges assumptions. What happened at Sevastopol and Gvardeyskoye Airbase was not just a military episode, it was a snapshot of a world where innovation can come from unexpected places and where even small actions can carry significant effects. Whether viewed as a warning, a lesson, or a turning point, the events reinforced the idea that no side can rely solely on tradition or technology alone. Adaptation has become the real weapon of the future, a day that won't be forgotten. As the sun climbed higher and the chaos settled into uneasy quiet, both sides began to absorb the reality of what had transpired. Russia faced the challenge of rebuilding and reevaluating its defensive posture. Ukraine measured the success of an operation that had required creativity, courage, and careful preparation. But for everyone involved, from sailors and technicians to pilots and commanders, that morning became a story to remember, not for its destruction, but for the stark reminder that modern warfare is as much about outthinking an opponent as it is about outmaneuvering them. In a world where technology evolves every year and conflict grows ever more unpredictable, the events of that dawn became another chapter in the long and complicated story of resilience, adaptation, and the human spirit in times of pressure.